welcome back to the Prestige TV podcast feed. I'm Joanna Robinson.
I'm Rob Mahoney.
We're wearing the same clothes we were last time you saw us do a Pitt podcast. Don't worry about it. We're here to talk to you about the Pitt finale. Rob Mahoney, just off the top.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about the Pitt finale?
Solid finale. Great season. I just had a wonderful time with the show. It just works, Fundamentally, it just works. I didn't know how much I needed this kind of procedural in my life, but I did. How are you feeling about it, Joe?
Really good. I will say, as a whole, as a season, kind of 10 out of 10, maybe 9.8 out of 10, but basically a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Actually, let's say 9.8, 9.5, because, I don't know that it ever... There's a height it didn't quite hit for me, but your assessment at the beginning of the season, in which we were not nearly as high as we are now on the Pitt, as well-made furniture TV, that is absolutely what the Pitt is, and as an entirety in its entirety as an accomplishment, extraordinary.
Yes.
Are there moments of television or visuals in television or bits of, monologues or dialogues in television that have hit a little bit higher for me? Yes. This isn't hitting Shogun, levels for me, but I'm so glad we covered it. Thanks to Bill Simmons. He's the one who told us to do it. He was right. So here we are.
He really was on it. The thing that has struck me most about it is I have not been historically a huge medical procedural person.
Yeah.
And I feel like I may have been missing out, and maybe this is a reason for me to go back and watch ER and really revisit some of this, because one of my absolute favorite things to see on screen, period, in any format, in any genre, Joe, I love teamwork. I love watching it. I love a different kind of chemistry where there's shared focus, where there's the physical choreography of surgeons and nurses and doctors huddled around someone. They know their stuff. They know each other well enough to sort of preempt what they're supposed to do. I love watching it. And so, as far as delivering on what a procedural is aiming to be and supposed to be, it's hard to ask much more of a medical procedural than this.
I really agree. If we're measuring by the stick of medical procedural, this is
it's really
creme
good.
de la creme. This is incredible. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to break down the finale. We're going to talk about where we leave all of our characters. And then we are going to conclude parts 3 and 4 of our very special Prestige TV investigation into who played PittFest 2025. We've got 2 more categories to go.
Can we get an intrepid graphic designer to mock up a PittFest lineup list? Is that something that's within our power to commission?
Here are our remaining 2 categories.
Okay.
One is we hear from the Yinzers. We hear from the locals in Pittsburgh who have some specific ideas about who might have been playing PittFest. The other is I'm going to call Do You Even Festival Bro. And it's from all the people who were afraid that you and I had never heard of a music festival before in our life, but write some compelling emails in support of kind of their local music festivals and the variety of acts that they've seen there. So we're going to maybe run through those, and maybe those will give people an idea. It's April. We're headed into summer.
Yeah.
If you're a music festival kind of person, maybe this will inspire you to do some music festing this summer. Okay.
Or if you run a music festival and want to commission us to program your festival, I think we could do it.
Or if you run a music festival and you're looking for a podcast stage.
I don't think that's the audience for us. I don't think a live podcast into a music festival is quite the right fit for us.
Rob
but
and I will take this show on the road.
We'll do that. Look, you put us in a tent with the mildest soundproofing, and I think we can make it work. Other than that, we might get drowned out.
A producer's nightmare, but let's give it a try. Why not? Okay, here's something I want to say. Something we forgot to talk about in episode 14 is that it ends with this cliffhanger of dun, 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 the cops are here for McKay, right? We didn't talk about that. Resolved pretty instantly. And the only thing that I can think of, it was a pretty silly cliffhanger. And the only thing I can think of in terms of how we balance this equation of who these people are is it's one of those moments where we bumped a bit on Robby and McKay's dynamic around David. This was them at their most sort of locking horns all season. And yet, of course, Robby's gonna swoop in and protect McKay because she's one of his. So
he's got her back.
We bring the cops in to talk to the other cops, and
well, cops can only talk to other cops.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
They don't hear doctors when they talk to them, but they heard the other cops when the other cops were talking to them, and they let McKay off with a warning. Anything else you want to say about this?
Yeah, everything you're saying makes sense as far as like kind of giving us a follow up on the Robby McKay dynamic. I would say, and we just lavish the show with praise. This doesn't need to be a cliffhanger. This could just be a scene,
correct,
in which you don't dangle it as if this is a real thing when it is so clearly and obviously not. It was such a bogus transition between the two episodes, unless if you want to book Dr. McKay in episode 1 of the Pitt PD, let's backdoor pilot this thing right now, but you got to take her out of the hospital. You can't be letting her out of the cuffs right now.
Rob, oh my God.
I'm just saying, like,
are you secretly pinching Casey Bloys right now?
I have the vision of a streamer, you know. when I dream at night, I'm seeing interfaces, I'm seeing tiles. That's
the rudest thing you've ever said about yourself on this podcast.
I'm just pulling it together, Joe. I'm just algorithmically trying to navigate your life.
Great. Okay. So here are the cases that we're wrapping up mainly in this final episode. We're wrapping up the measles case. We're wrapping up Santos and the blue kid case.
Yes. He was quite blue.
Very blue. And Hector and the crushed pelvis, which I believe is headlining PittFest 2023.
For some reason, when you said Hector and the crushed pelvis, I got more of like a Harold and the Purple Crayon children's book kind of image in my head, but I think yours is better.
Where do you want to start? Choose your own adventure of those 3 cases.
Let's start with, I just think it's very ambitious for a show like The Pitt, with 2 episodes left, to introduce the big bad of the entire season, who is Measle Mom. Just an instantly hateable character thrown into the mix so that we all can gather around and point at her and say, what is wrong with this lady?
Okay. Measle Mom sucks. And
just unequivocally sucks.
Just definitely sucks. Robby takes Measle Dad, which these are their Christian names. Robby takes Measle Dad into the morgue in this like kind of incredible sequence where he's like walking and talking him the whole way. Tell me about your kid. Like,
tell me about his games.
Yeah. And then we know where he's walking him. We're like, Jesus Christ, Robby, right? As does every character who hears about this throughout the episode later. They're like,
thank goodness.
What the fuck did you do exactly? Okay. So walks him into the morgue.
Yeah.
Measle Dad says you're an asshole. And then Robby gets another one of those like sort of, I would have snipped it out of the episode. Yeah, I'm an asshole who's trying to save your son's life. Like sort of muttered to himself. And I was just sort of like, yeah, we know. I mean, we know what you're trying to do, Robby.
Yeah, we get it.
Here's
also, this is not the move. Don't take him to the morgue, please.
Well, or did it work? Because it seems like it kind of worked.
I don't know. Joe, a real means to an end kind of thinker.
I wouldn't do it myself.
Strictly utilitarian.
Here's where I'm going to be a little bit of a wet blanket on our Pitt praise.
Okay.
And it has to do with Measle Mom.
Yes.
Can you think of an instance this season where we had loved ones that were a man and a woman paired and the woman was not the problem in the scenario?
That's a great question. We get it with the DNR early.
Yep.
In terms of the brother and sister.
Sister.
Yeah.
And with the kid, and then with the kid who ODs. And they're asking about organ donation.
That one to me is a little different, right? That's not treatment.
But it's still she was
the holdout,
hysterically upset about it,
right?
And so I believe that plenty of women, let alone moms, are hysterically upset about things in ER, and I think that is like a fine thing to depict. I'm not sure it was. I feel like every time Robby needs to like talk people around, he's got to talk to the guy and then go ahead and convince the woman. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that like it just hit one last time. Measle Mom was just so bad.
She was very over the top.
I was just like, Jesus.
I do think we got some dads in that equation.
I mean, softball dad.
Softball dad is the one case in point, but there was no mom there to be the counterpoint to say the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I hear you. And I mean, we did get progesterone abuser dad. He was a patient and not a dad overseeing the care of his kids. So slightly different scenario. But yeah, I hear you on that front. And like there is a certain, I would say the difference is this woman is not being played for emotional hysteria. She's being played for like a certain sort of like internet know-it-all, self-cultivated proficiency where she actually has none. So it is a slightly different pitch of that same thing, but you're right. It is often the moms.
But that being said, obviously Measle Mom sucks. And obviously I'm glad that Dr. Mel King got to do the spinal tap and all of that resolved the way that it did.
Joe, how much do you know about a spinal tap?
The band? The mockumentary?
Not the mockumentary nor the band, but the actual medical procedure.
Here's what here's everything I, Joanna Robinson, a daughter of medical professionals, but has never expressed actual interest in knowing anything about what my parents do. You put something into the spine, and then collect liquid that comes out.
Yeah. This is not that I'm an expert.
Tap. Yeah.
I know as much as you do, which is you're collecting that spinal fluid.
Yeah.
My question is, the portrayal of it in this show is roughly a leaky faucet of spinal fluid into a vial that Mel King is catching with her hand.
Yeah.
Please email us at prestigetv@spotify.com. Is this really how a spinal tap works?
How do you, do you plug it back up? Like, how do you keep the spinal, you gotta put a cork in it? Like, what do you do?
I think you got to put a cork in it.
Yeah.
This is basically the plot of The Substance in a lot of ways, but also spinal fluid is the source of all kinds of terrible medical situations that people can find themselves in. And so the idea that it's just sort of leaking out of a needle with a spigot, I did not know this is how it was. And I kind of hope that it's not, but the show's been accurate on so many other medical things. I'm afraid to say that it probably is.
You're please let this be on the slap bracelet end of accuracy on the Pitt. Anything else you want to say about this measles case?
No, I think it's pretty open and shut otherwise. I do wish the Measle Mom had been a little more fleshed out in a slightly more sympathetic fashion, that she had some redeeming quality to her that would make it make sense. Yeah. But otherwise, she's just a lady representing a cause in a way that is quite blunt.
And in a way that the rest of the season felt like it had so much leisurely time to not make people, because even with the DNR, that was such an incredible evolution of that woman in the DNR when we were why is she resisting this? Robby seems right. Her brother seems so reasonable. Why is she being so unreasonable? And then we get that sort of deathbed reason that makes us really sort of invest in her. Measle Mom, unless she's back in season 2, remains a caricature, alas, at the end of the day. Okay. Let's talk about, I would like to talk about Santos.
Yeah, please.
So Santos, who all season we've been tracking her bedside manner, has this moment with this blue kid who is no longer blue. Blue plus blue equals pink, as Langdon tells us.
That's math.
And she talks about, she had already alluded to a history of sexual abuse when she was younger. She talks about a friend she had who killed herself as a result of that shared experience that they had. In helping this kid, saying, she wants to make sure she doesn't want to hand this kid off. She wants to make sure he doesn't slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
She not only seems to correctly diagnose him and hopefully give him the kind of bedside chat that will help him going forward. That's what it seems to have happened. But then also we follow this up with the Whittaker coda. So it all feels like it bleeds together for me, this sort of end of season moment of growth for Santos, or end of a single day in a person's life character arc for Santos. How are you feeling about this?
You can grow a lot in 15 hours, it turns out. I think for her, the idea that she is not only learning how to approach patients differently and to hear them out, but she's also learning how to apply her own experience a little bit differently. When she brought up her previous abuse, it was in a way that was irresponsible and dangerous and outside of the realm of normal medical practice.
Correct.
Here she's bringing it up to not, in a situation where, as you said, she's not only right about the merits of what's happening in the case, but she's using it as a point of connection, not as a point of threat or division or to drive a point home. Like, she's trying to get Max to open up by offering something of herself. And we just haven't seen Sandros open up to basically anybody else this season, on the staff or not. Like, she has kept to herself. She's kept to her ambition. She's kept to trying to get into the red zone as quickly as possible to do the most adventurous medical things. Mm-hmm. And if anything, this is her embracing her inner, like, Dr. Mohan a little bit, right?
Yes.
Like, slowing down, connect with the patient. She's coming from the other side of the spectrum in terms of medical practice and is trying to fight her way into actually caring about these people. And it's cool to see her get there with Max.
On the flip side of that, I love that you invoked Mohan, because on the flip side of that, we get this, this high from Mohan, who's just sort of like...
She's deranged, I will say.
Adrenaline up and then crash. And two things I want to know. One, I really like the actress who plays Mohan, Supriya Ganesh, is so beautiful. It's hard to make her not beautiful, and they don't succeed. But slightly frizzing out the tendrils around her really face as she is like in this unhinged mode was pretty phenomenal. But also, Dr. McKay saying like you're about to crash, and then watching her in the bathroom cry. And the detail to me in that moment is she's washing her hands in the sink, and there's not just like blood in the trash can, like bloody paper towels in the trash can, but like under the soap dispenser is just like
it's
smears
kind of everywhere.
Of blood, and it's just like this is the aftermath we're existing in.
Shout out to the split and splat team that just went in there to blood that thing up. It's even like little like marks under like shoe marks.
Industry term?
It is, yeah.
Team? Okay.
It's official. I mean, look for best splitting and splatting at the Emmys this year. I think we just need to recognize our crafts.
It's Esme and her team, I think, on the splitting and splatting beat. Wow, incredible. Anything else you want to say? What else do you want to say about Mohan?
I mean, yeah, she is behaving like a lunatic for most of this episode in a very enjoyable way, and one that I love to see her in, and I think that performance is super fun. She's also sort of juxtaposed, we should say, with Javadi as well, who is already well into the crash, completely gassed, ready for a nap. And yeah, I think one of the best things about this finale to me, which is a cool down episode, right? Mm-hmm. Like we kind of climax with 12 and 13, and then we're cooling down over these last two. Overall, there are some cases coming in the door. There's still plenty of emergency medicine to participate in, but it's characters getting off the clock, trying to get out of their shifts and go home. Someone like Javadi too, like the character beat of her just like in the elevator forgetting to get out as she sort of slouched against the gurney, I thought was wonderful.
That was an extremely real. I was like, I have been there. Yeah. I have not, but yes.
Just zonked out of her mind. And so, yeah, that we're seeing all of these characters wind down in their different ways. I found to be a really enjoyable part of this finale and a way to kind of give us different points of connection from what we've seen. Like, Javadi's been so eager and precocious this whole season. To see her at energy zero, I thought was really exciting. To see Mohan revved up in a way she's never been before, we love to see it. Like, I just love to see these characters in slightly different emotional places, if only because they've had this incredibly traumatic experience together.
And Victoria being like, I'm not sure everyone, like, I this day might have put me off practicing medicine altogether. Like, how do you guys deal with this? How do you experience all of this? Which is a similar question that, was a question that was put to Mel King in episode 14, and she just said, "I don't know," and that was sort of right before her breakdown. Victoria is asking this question: How do you do all of this? But then she also gets, she had several medical wins, but she also gets this social win with like Mateo being like, let's go get beers with people in the park across the street.
It's an unquestionable win.
Yeah.
I'm going to say on Mateo's part, a bit of a misleading invitation.
He might actually be interested in her. You don't know.
I don't doubt it, but for him to come up and be like, hey, do you want to get a drink? She says yes. And he's like, 8 of us are going to the park across the street. Like, that's not quite what you asked, You're
right. And you're right. And you should say it. He did give her a juice box, though, earlier. And
he did.
He
already bought her one drink. Yeah. This is just the second drink.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's go now to your favorite couple, which is Abbott and Walsh.
Love them.
Basically, this is Hector and the crushed pelvis. This is hospital staff, crushed pelvis on the loading dock. Robby and Jack are initially on this. I did love this moment when Shen and Ellis come in and they're like two old white guys post-our patient. Was like a great moment from the night shift. Shen and Ellis, an unbeatable duo. Later when they're doing rounds and the Nightcrawler guys, like there were rats on their bed and Ellis is like, okay, sir, we'll look into that for you. Like,
see, you put this question to me in the last pod, Joe.
Yeah.
I want your answer on it. Do you want the Pitt night shift?
The only reason I would want the Pitt night shift is that if we could get 2 Pitts a year, and I don't mean to be greedy and overstretch them. Like, basically take your time, take however long you need to make a great episode of the season of the Pitt. But if we could be so lucky, we used to live in a society with 22 episodes a season.
We did.
If we could be so lucky as to get 15 episode day shift, 15 episode night shift in 2 different seasons of the year.
That is more hours than there are in the day. I don't know what to tell you. The shifts are bleeding into each other at that point.
But that's what you like. You like this handover. We can
It's
get
true.
some of the day shift coming in at the end of the night shift season, you know?
You're
Get some
absolutely right.
handoff. All right. So initially it's Robby and it's Jack, but as you noted in the previous episode, Robby is not fine out of the peds room. He is not doing well, and he just starts to zone out in Hector's room when they're trying to decide about sort of slightly experimental procedures, pack his pelvis with some things that are going to stop the bleeding. And
he can't even concur, Joe. Like, he can't even agree with the basis of like medical recommendation.
Do you concur? So it's Walsh and it's Abbott, and they're just sort of like going back and forth and looking to Robby for this sort of final go ahead, and Robby is incapable of interacting, and Walsh just like, okay, I guess we're doing this then.
This is why I like Walsh though.
Yeah.
Like, she's a bit of a ball buster at times, but ultimately she's like, fuck it, let's do it. I'm gonna scrub up. We're gonna make this thing work here rather than in the OR. Like, she is game to participate in the discourse, and that's what I appreciate about Dr. Walsh.
I did like her in this episode. I thought that was great, and I you know, in general, I do like a ball buster. Okay, so what else let's talk about Dana. Okay, we didn't talk about her. Let's talk about Robby, Langdon, and Dana, right? So we get Langdon's like, oh God, there's only 1 more hour left of this season of television. I need some answers on what we're going to do with my situation here. And he approaches Robby in the ambulance bay in a way that I would say it was not entirely productive, but we do get some nice exposition from Robby about what it would take. And this echoes an email we got from a listener 2 weeks ago about sort of if you get treatment, there is a road back from, I guess the gentle term is diverting medication from the ER. So we
that's quite gentle for stealing
diversion of medication,
for just stealing very intense drugs.
The Dana Langdon scene, though, which is an incredible television scene because we get Dana comes in. We know Dana's already mentioned like this might be it for her, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of this episode, we see her pack up her like personals, and looks like maybe she's not coming back for season 2 of the Pitt. Calamity. She better come back. Okay. But
yeah, if we have any demands, Nurse Dana has to be back for season 2.
Let's throw the entirety of the Pitt night shift in the trash if it means I can get Dana back for season 2.
I'm willing to do it.
Okay. So in this scene, they go into the break room, and her entire purpose of being in there is to make a cup of coffee.
One single cup of coffee.
Just one cup of coffee for poor fucking Dana, who has been on her feet all day, except for that time when someone punched her into the ground. Okay? So, like, get this woman a cup of coffee. Can't happen. The moment that Dana had to wash her own mug.
Heartbreaking.
Because no one had done their dishes and she just needed a mug for a cup of coffee. I was like, you fucking animals. You absolute animals.
Look, it's been busy.
I don't care.
No?
There should be, when Dana needs a cup of coffee, there should be a clean mug for her. And I feel very strongly about that. She walks out of the room not getting her cup of coffee. She does not get the cup of coffee. She has this interaction with Langdon. She does give us the lethal weapon, I'm too old for this shit moment. And she has that moment where he's like, he's sort of, he's bartering and he's like, Robby's wrong. Robby has the wrong idea, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, trust Robby. He will do what's best for you. She keeps calling him kid, even though he's like a 40-something-year-old man, whatever. And then he's like, he thinks I'm an addict. And she goes, are you? And in a way that like really reminded me of the John Carter scenes that you and I had looked at from his confrontation in a break room in the ER about his addiction. How did this Dana Langdon or the Robby Langdon stuff work for you?
I mean, I think the Dana Langdon stuff, especially as you highlighted, just a great scene. In particular, because I am very invested in Dana getting her coffee, and it is heartbreaking to watch her walk out of there, just having to listen to Langdon grouse and basically not even beg and ask, but like, I need you to back me up. Can
I just tell you, Rob, if I'm Langdon, if you and I are in this situation and you are Dana and I am Langdon, I am washing that mug for you.
You're making her the coffee.
I am making you the coffee. God damn it. Okay, go ahead.
Career-saving favor, and you can't even make the woman a cup of coffee.
Jesus Christ.
I think Langdon's pitch overall with all of these pleas is just way off. And I think my question about his interaction with Robby out in the ambulance bay is, did he burn this bridge or did he shake it a bit? Because when he turns it personal, pointing the finger at Robby and saying, well, what about you? Guy having a breakdown in the peds room. Aren't you broken by this in the same way that I'm broken about this, or more by this line of work than I am? And once he does that, I'm curious to see if they try to come back from that or not. Like, Robby is the kind of guy who, having slept on something, might come back with a more compassionate response, or even just kind of the same offer. Like, look, the deal's still the same. You go away for your 30-day treatment program. You can come back and we'll help you with whatever the next steps are. But I mean, Langdon comes in really aggressive with him.
And like, just so accusatory. As Langdon's attorney, I would like to suggest that these are not the moves whatsoever. Anything that he's doing here. And do I want Langdon back in the pit? Yeah, because that's good drama.
It is good drama.
So I would like him to do a better job than he's doing of arguing himself back. What do you make of the fact that Dr. Collins doesn't show up at all for the rest, this back stretch of the season? She's on your
That was pretty surprising, but canonically, that woman's got her phone off and is trying to get some sleep.
She slept right through a mass casualty event.
She looked better for it. It seemed like a pretty tough experience for everybody involved. I'm surprised by it, just from like a TV standpoint. It seemed like she would come in the 11th hour and like kind of jump in the way that Langdon did and kind of give a helping hand. But the fact that it was Langdon who came back and not Collins it's a fascinating kind of twist of the knife as far as the drama goes. And clearly, like, he was really valuable in treating all these patients in a moment of crisis. And as soon as the temperature got turned down, everyone starts looking around. Who knows about what happened is like, so what's this guy doing here now? He's just back. Santos is alarmed. Robby is constantly telling him to go home. The nurses are chattering. Dana, as we're told in this episode, or reminded in this episode, knows that Langdon was sent home, but was very specifically not told the extent of what he had done. Now she knows. Yeah, I mean, he came out with it.
Yeah.
Or he came out with a version of it that is just not very convincing. Like, what he tells Robby, that I was taking these drugs to treat my withdrawal symptoms and not as an addict, I was never high on the job, is just about the least convincing line in this entire show.
All right, so given that we were just talking about the legend that is Dana, who seems to me and to our listeners to be the most Pittsburghian of Pittsburgh characters.
Quite.
Let's go to part 3 of our investigation into PittFest.
Okay.
And let's hear from the Yinzers. Okay?
Are you going to do the accent or no?
No. Not even if I could.
Just want to make sure.
Here's some local information that I found very illuminating.
Okay.
Dana suggests that the one thing always brings Pittsburghers of all ages and ilk together, and it's fireworks. And she said maybe PittFest features a Zambelli fireworks display at concert end. That sounds so specific. I don't know who the Zambelli fireworks people are, but apparently all of Pittsburgh likes their work.
I bet they're doing great work.
We got multiple suggestions from locals for Rusted Root.
Okay.
They're from Pittsburgh, and some members are or have been local music teachers. So they would have a more diverse audience in their hometown than they would in other cities. So, Rusted Root. Brenna writes in about Wiz Khalifa. Brenna writes, Wiz Khalifa, probably Pittsburgh's biggest musical export right now. There's a chance he could have gotten Snoop there, who likes to rep PGH sports gear and has collaborated on songs. I think the kids could be into Wiz. Though I don't know, they are young and I'm 35 and he was just getting big when I was their age. So, oh God. And our old stoner buddy could vibe with him and Snoop on the marijuana of it all, maybe.
Okay.
So don't put it past an old stoner in Pittsburgh to like literally any music. We're not terribly judgmental people. We like to have a good time. So
Do you think the hippie has seen Furious 7?
I think he loves the entire Fast and Furious franchise.
I would hope so.
Okay. Joshua points out that there is a musical festival in Pennsylvania, the Four Chord Music Festival.
Okay.
And this year's lineup is Blink-182, Jimmy Eat World, Jawbreaker, and Bowling for Soup.
This is, I mean, we're hitting a little close to home yet again, Joe.
Does that sound right? Do you feel like PittFest is for you, Rob Mahoney?
I mean, it depends on who's in the lineup. Like this version, see, some of these acts I've seen before, some of them I would not see in their current nostalgia / reunion phases.
Bowling for Soup?
Plano Legends, if I'm not mistaken. Plano, Texas Legends, my hometown. Shout out to Bowling for Soup. I would see Bowling for Soup if I happened to be at a festival where they were playing. Would I go out of my way to see Bowling for Soup in concert? I cannot say that in 2025 I would.
Last but not least, and this will wrap up this section of our investigation, multiple people from Pittsburgh wrote in to tell us about what they call a locally famous dad rock band, the Clarks. Had you heard of the Clarks?
Had not heard of the Clarks, but I tuned in. I checked them out.
I also checked out some YouTube clips.
Yeah.
I watched a clip of them on Pittsburgh Today. Some live clips. Very like dad band inoffensive.
Soft alt rock, Americana. They are what they sound like.
And have been going like since like their front man is this like tall drink of water. You can watch him from like the early 90s with like a big like dark poof of hair, and then here he is on Pittsburgh Today still now with like a gray poof of hair, and he's just like still doing it. Also, did you know that Pittsburgh has a very famous rib fest? This is part of the whole Clark's information that we got from people.
Okay, you have my attention now, Joe.
Yeah. It's like a 3-day festival dedicated to the deliciousness that is ribs. And one of our listeners, Rachel, wrote, I assume PittFest is an amalgamation of our various summer festivals, Art Fest, Rib Fest, Picklesburg.
Picklesburg?
Rib Fest and Picklesburg, two delights you can enjoy in Pittsburgh.
I hope they're adjacent. I hope they're connecting festivals.
A chaser, a Picklesburg chaser.
You want the
Rib
acid
Fest.
with the barbecue for sure.
Yeah.
You know what? As we ponder season 2 of the Pit, which is imminent, we should say. Well, not close to imminent. It's on the books. There is a plan. It will be. This show will be back in January, Joe, and I'm thrilled about it.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I want to be going home with the staff because I love being on the floor. I suspect we will be.
But you kind of want to go to Picklesburg?
This is the thing. Like if the pitches were going to Picklesburg, that's a different enterprise than am I going to see Santos Whitaker roommate hijinks.
Right. She knows Krav Maga, though, so I just want you to consider that.
Look, if Santos wants to do Krav Maga on the show, that's, again, different. If she wants to do Krav Maga at Picklesburg, all the better.
Okay, here's another full circle moment, and I want to get into this another incredible email that has nothing to do with music. Take a breather from PittFest.
Okay.
We wind up back on the roof, as we did at the beginning of the season. Robby is up there. Dr. Abbott goes up to find Robby there. Has some very important information about whether or not DoorDash will come up to the roof or not. And is sort of talking Robby down from the roof to a certain degree. And we've got these two sort of leader of men. We talked 2 weeks ago about Jack Abbott and what adding him into the show did. Sean Hattasey gave a great interview as part of that big Vanity Fair package about episode 12. He was talking about how hard it was for him to come in, like 12 episodes later, these people have all been working together for like 12 episodes, and he's just sort of like, hi, I'm here. And he was like very stressed out about, integrating back into the cast. But we learned in this episode, as we already clocked, Dr. Abbott was a combat medic, like had worked in combat. And then we get this reveal at the end of the episode that he has this prosthetic on his leg.
Yeah. Which we should say means he had a prosthetic leg and was donating blood out of the other leg.
Off the leg. Yeah, exactly. Off the other
Or was
leg.
it the same leg?
No, I think it was the other leg. Yeah.
I mean, hardcore either way, this guy.
So that's what we know about Dr. Abbott based on his backpack and other things.
Yes.
Here's what we now know about Dr. Robby based on his backpack. Thanks to an email we got from Christina. That is one of my favorite emails we've ever gotten.
Okay.
Christina wrote, here to report on the niche sub-interest trenches on a costume prop choice for Dr. Robby in the Pit. In the 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. episodes, we get peeks of the backpack Robby carries. It's made by a very if you know company, Tom Bin. If you're not familiar with Tom Bin, it's a supremely ethical company that makes backpacks, travel bags, etc. They call their company, quote, human scale capitalism. All their bags are designed and sewn in their Seattle factory. They're not cheap, and they're quite dorky looking. Basically, you only end up with that backpack, capital O on capital P purpose. Robby also has a Doctors Without Borders patch on it, which can be seen in this freeze frame that she sent over. That Robby chose his backpack and placed that patch on it says a lot. That he makes choices with ethics in mind, that he takes things pretty seriously, and maybe his backstory includes a deployment or two with Doctors Without Borders. I wonder whether Noah Wiley or a costume designer is the nerd who chose that backpack for that character. Yours truly, bag nerd Tina. Love
First
this.
of all, Tina, incredible work. The level of expertise, as you have said, Joe, that we're getting from our emailers. We have ER doctors and nurses left and right emailing us in. We had like venue bartenders trying to indulge us on who might be playing at PittFest.
Yeah.
And now we have bag nerds. I'm blown away by the level of expertise.
It's true. We're together. We're putting something really special together, I think, here on the Prestige TV feed. I did not clock the Doctors Without Borders patch. I love that she highlighted that. So when we get to the beer debrief in the park at the end, and we're talking about this day that we went through as this sort of battle we've survived together, how we are battle bonded by this experience. They have a laugh over the fact that this is Victoria's first day, all this sort of stuff like that. We get, I would say, slightly heavy-handed cut to Dr. Abbott when we're talking about, have you ever seen something as intense as this? And it's like this unspoken thing is, yes, I, lost part of my leg in pursuit of this.
As he takes off his prosthetic and wipes blood off the shoe.
Yeah. Thanks for the wet wipe, princess. But then we've got Robby, who's done Doctors Without Borders. He's done not the same thing, but like something else where he has gone into, this is something Dr. John Carter did do on ER. Came
Again,
back.
This is not ER. Legally speaking, the Pit is not ER.
Came back in a relationship with Tendue Newton, who among us would not want that as a result of Doctors Without Borders. But I just thought that was interesting, positioning him as having. There's also a moment when he puts his hoodie back on. It's in episode 14, but he puts his hoodie back on, a very like Mr. Rogers move, but it's just a very like Dad's back. Yeah, like Dad's here again. Everything's gonna be okay. It won't, but we'll try to make it feel okay.
And Dad's problems in many ways are only beginning at that point. Like Robby has a very tough emotional episode, but I do love this kind of subtle Doctors Without Borders wink for Robby, and maybe we'll get that explored, or maybe we won't. And as far as Dr. Abbott goes, I've really enjoyed having this sort of, like, we knew that him being a veteran gave him a different skill set. He's talked about that a bunch of times. In combat situations, in combat hospitals, this is what we did. We did these all the time, et cetera, et cetera. But in this talking down scene on the roof, it also just gives him such a different perspective on loss and such a different perspective on being in intense situations, in particular where everything is so hectic and so harried and so violent that none of it can possibly make sense, and then you're left to make sense of it afterwards. Yeah. And so to have the person who's talking Robby down come from such a radically different frame of reference from a downtown Pittsburgh hospital, I love what that brings to the show and ultimately what that's bringing to the staff.
I love his can we stop talking for a second with Jack? Jack being like almost physically unable to do that. I'm gonna need some beers if we're gonna do this. Like it all like worked really, really well for me.
Very much so.
In terms of going home, I think the closest we get to going home is Mel picking up her sister.
Yeah.
This like sort of Mel King coda where we meet her sister who we've seen a bit during the season. I loved this so much. I mean, like, as I love everything with Dr. Mel King, obviously, but the like, we can get pasta and pizza, like
and a movie.
The King sisters can do that. No, the way she's like, let's watch. She just says Elf. And Mel's like, or maybe something we haven't seen. Reminded me so much of when I was a babysitter. I used to babysit this like one kid who like every single time he was like, The Lion King. I was like, or literally anything else. And he's like, The Lion King. And that was
at least he picked a banger, Joe.
He did. But I was like, what about Aladdin? Have you considered? And he was like, no, The Lion King. So, this was a beautiful little character moment for
it really was.
Dr. Mel King.
And yeah, is a good counterpoint to the idea of whether we want to go home with these doctors or not. I think overall, I mean, we've sung Taylor Dearden's praises all season long.
Yeah.
I would encourage you, if you've just been watching The Pitt and not been consuming any extracurricular material, go watch a Taylor Dearden interview and get a sense of like how different presentationally, voice, like literally everything about this person, and you get a sense of kind of the overall scope of that performance to become Mel is really remarkable. And specifically in terms of making Mel then feel so lived in and lovable and like a real tangible person who has all this stuff to carry with her is really a remarkable thing.
On the let's wrap things up with everyone. We already mentioned that Dina packs up her personal belongings. What do you make of this? I really loved this final exchange, I will say, with her and Robby when they're looking at Dr. Adamson's photo. She's trying to give him the grace and asking him to give him the grace that he would afford other people and all of that. Yeah. But what I really loved most of all, I think, actually, was the tossed away "see you Monday," right? Where he's not even like looking at her when he says it. Mm-hmm. She pauses slightly, but not in a deeply dramatic way, and just sort of walks out the door. And as much as I want her back, like it would, not that they would never see each other again. Obviously, like she would come visit or whatever, but like, I like that resolution or lack thereof for them. And I like that there's no resolution with Jake either. We don't end the day with Jake being like fine with everything. It's an open wound right now for Robby. So.
Very much so. Yeah. Quite the opposite in the Jake case in a way that is so devastating to watch. Yeah. And I think that we were primed in many ways to think, okay, maybe by now Langdon's talked to him, Dana's talked to him, his mom has been there. Like there's been enough time passing. He's been scrolling through pictures of Leah on his phone. Obviously he's not going to absorb this kind of trauma in a matter of hours. Yeah. But could he bring himself to just like look Robby in the eye and accept that maybe it wasn't his fault? Right? Like the shooter has been apprehended. Like movement has been made as far as who did this. Yeah. But that scene with Jake is so tough. And it's so tough in the context, like Robby then has to turn around and go talk to Leah's parents immediately afterwards.
What do you make of the fact that we didn't go in the room with him?
I appreciate it. Yeah, I like it. I like the restraint on that. I will say one thing about the Pitt. If you were to just go back and think about the beats we've been talking about, almost every character has had a breakdown moment. And not once have I thought, oh, this feels repetitive. Yeah. Like they're all breaking down in their own ways with their own pressure points, right? Like something very specific to them happens that kind of pulls them apart. And so despite the fact that Robby has had all of these very emotional conversations with so many different people, what I found most affecting about that one is almost how worn down and removed he is in that moment, in going in the room and coming out, where it's not I'm going to take a second and gear up and put on my empathetic face, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to spend time and say the thing. Like he's kind of in and out of that room
really quickly. And all we hear is them crying. And I would think that I think that's probably the worst version of that conversation that Robby has given all day.
Maybe in his entire career. Yeah.
And he comes out, he's in the quiet stairwell. He looks through the doors and he sees the ER is bustling and he just can't go in. And that's when he goes up to the roof. Yeah. But that just like that breakdown for him.
I mean, it's just been hit after hit for him. Yeah. I think throughout this entire season, but in this episode, there's the ongoing nervous breakdown that he's already having. There's the frustrations with Measle Mom that are really picking at him. Yeah. There's Langdon's whole deal. There's just the worst and most painful version of the conversation he's having with Jake. It's all really getting to him. It's all causing him to come apart. And despite that, I do think he gets to have his moment. And it's to finally give the big speech that he wasn't allowed to give earlier in the season, right? Like he does get to give the debrief to the day staff going home. And I found this to be a really magical piece of TV, Joe.
Tell me why you thought it was magical.
I think some of it for me is the delay on it and the delayed satisfaction of giving him that emotional moment. I think it's really well written, and maybe this is me bringing my own trauma to the table, Joe. Maybe this is me bringing my own experience because
trauma welcome, Rob.
Certainly so. As Robby is giving this speech, which is part of his speech, we saw our better angels come to the aid of our patients. Each of you rose to the occasion, and I can't tell you how proud I am of all of you. This place will break your heart, but it's also full of miracles, and that is a testament to all of you coming together and doing what we do best. I think it's a good speech. I think it's well delivered. I think we pointed out the Mel element of like, if Mel cries, we cry.
Yeah.
I identified a new one for myself, which is if Princess cries, I also start tearing up. Love Princess. If I'm going to make subsequent demands for season 2, I would love a Princess and Perla focused episode of some kind. That would be delightful. But this speech reminded me a lot of another banger from another John Wells produced show. Very Jed Bartlett in 20 Hours of America. There's like a big explosion in the West Wing on a college campus, and a bunch of like people at the school go in as like de facto first responders. And Jed Bartlett gives this big like the streets of heaven are too crowded with angels tonight bit that's incredible TV, much more like written speech than this what Robby gives, but hits so many of the same notes, which is this, like we're reminded of the incredible things that we can do despite the fact that we're facing these incredible challenges and traumas and like what we can overcome collectively. It's like it's hitting the same emotional beat for me, but in a way that is very raw and is very unrehearsed. And Robby's like breaking down as he's giving it. And I found that combination to be really effective. I
find stories about leaders of men, which again, I mean that sort of like in a non-gendered term, but like I do think of it in a very sort of the positive version of a paternalistic way. And when you look to a Jed Bartlett, or when you look to a Coach Taylor, or when you look to a Dr. Robby, this is something that Noah Wiley said in Vanity Fair about Robby. He says he seems smart, he seems capable, he seems fatherly, he seems competent, he seems compassionate, and then you see him fall down.
Yeah.
This is a look at the toll that it takes on the people who take care of us. Patients are getting sicker, patients are getting angrier, but these doctors are making less money. It doesn't compute. So there's no clean answers here, and no implication that tomorrow will necessarily be better than any of these problems are solved.
No.
So we're not here to solve problem or give pat answers. We're just here to try and forgive ourselves when we fall short and try again. And that's a great message to receive.
I think as we're finding, the forgiving yourself is the hard part.
Yeah.
There was something so striking about Robby running through the exact toll of what the hospital had been through. You know, in terms of like, these are all the people that were in the red zone. This is how many people went through pink.
Yes,
these are all the people that have stabilized. The actual hard numbers. And what we end up with is 112 patients overall. 106 of them survived. And so then when you think about Leah as one of the 6 people who came into this ER and died, who wasn't DOA, but like actually died on the floor.
Yeah.
It's not shocking that Robby is having an overwhelmingly difficult time like coming back from that.
We also, I mean, we had seen the morgue, and there are only just a few bodies in the morgue.
They did a lot of good, an incredible amount of good.
But to hear the raw data like that as he runs it down, I agree. I thought that was really powerful. Anything else you want to say about the Pitt before we end with a tour of summer music festivals?
One question for you, Joe.
Please, Rob.
In light of our friend Harrison, who is finally allowed to exit the hospital.
To watch Planet of the Apes?
Is Planet of the Apes a scary movie?
It depends which one, I think.
That's true. Well, where would you rank them in terms of scariness?
I mean, say like...
not like all the bodies, not all the entries in the saga, because there are many, but in terms of like titled Planet of the Apes.
I would say the most, like, I would say there is some ape on ape violence in the most recent, mocap Andy Serkis era.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I might show it to a Harrison, but I might want to be there with him when he watches
fair.
it. Charlton Heston, fine. That's fine. You can watch that
What
anytime.
What about Tim
Burton? Fine.
Not fine, but watchable for a child.
Makeup choices, but fine.
Yeah.
But I think mocap era, there is some stuff. I mean, it depends how sensitive Harrison is, Depends on the kid entirely. I remember we showed my nephew on a sick day that he had, and we were got really excited to show him the Disney animated Robin Hood.
Oh, yeah.
And 2 minutes in, he was just no. And we were what? He was that snake is too scary. We're Sir Hiss? He's yeah, too scary. My sister and I were so crushed because we were
just
so excited. Just no. Just a simple no. And I was this is Disney's Robin Hood. Come on.
These kids today are too soft, Joe. They're not ready for Robin Hood and Little John hopping through the forest. They're not on it like we were.
Okay.
But it's a banger of a movie.
Anything else you want to say, Planet of the Apes or otherwise?
One last final gnarly watch of the season.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Go for it.
We get that fork straight up through the nose to the point that it has to be photographed to be believed.
Again, this is that was a perfect note of levity where it's just sort of Dr. Abbott being we got to get Dr. Shen, our utensil expert. And Dr. Ellis being I need a photo of this for the medical record and definitely not my own personal wall of disgusting things that I've seen at work.
But look, if you're going to drown children, then you also have to give us some, I can't believe this shit so much I need to go grab another doctor. There has to be a little yin and yang.
We end with Robby walking off, listening, putting the earbuds in, listening to some music. Baby by Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise is the track that closes out the season. Not one that was on my radar.
Or PittFests.
But does seem very
yeah.
I understand why it's a Robby song.
It both sounds, with all due respect, like a Robby song and also an affordable Max song. We're not really gonna spring for the Bob Seger.
Yeah.
But in this case, we'll play this.
Maybe Pitt season 2. We can throw down some money on the closing track. Okay. If you are listening to this podcast and you're hey, this summer I might want to explore a music festival, our listeners have you covered. Here are some things. When they were hey, have you heard of a music festival where multiple artists of different stripes play? Here are some suggestions we got.
Okay.
I'm going to start with local to me, Bay Area, local to you, Bay Area, Outside Lands, suggested by John. Great. I mean, Hardly Strictly Bluegrass in October is a great also Bay Area festival. But yeah, Outside Lands, of course, is the biggie. Bumbershoot in Seattle from Liz, who's a nurse. That's art and wine and music and the whole thing. So Bumbershoot. Minnesota hosted the first Yacht Club Festival, and it was a mix of nostalgia 90s bands to today. Alanis, Soul Asylum, Gwen Stefani, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Joan Jett, The Offspring. Great stuff.
Okay.
That's in Minnesota, the Yacht Club Festival. Riot Fest in Chicago, Illinois has hosted bands from Gogol Bordello to Nine Inch Nails to the Wu-Tang Clan to Jerry Lee Lewis and the B-52s. So, Riot Fest, Chicago. Firefly Fest in Dover, Delaware. I looked up this festival. Actually, pretty sick lineups historically from the Firefly Festival.
Do you have a sampling of those? What's been going on?
2022 lineup was Billie Eilish, Rage Against the Machine, Diplo, and Maggie Rogers.
It's pretty good as far as festivals go.
Right?
That's pretty good.
It's not bad. DJ Khaled. Okay. Music Fest in Massachusetts, 300 stages playing. Black Keys, Darius Rucker, Nelly, and then a bunch of free stage. You can go in for a bunch of free stages, and then you can pay to go see the Black Keys or whatever else you prefer.
I just want to say not for undue slander
Music
on this
Fest?
podcast. No, Nelly doesn't have it anymore.
Okay. But here's my question.
I regret to tell everyone who's interested in seeing Nelly, he's not showing up for you in the way that you think he will.
When we're naming festivals, I will just point out that this music fest is spelled with a K, music fest with a K. I still think we could have gone back to the drawing board on that one and done a few more passes. Courtney says she's equating PittFest to Boston Calling, Forecastle in Louisville, and Shaky Knees in Atlanta. These are multiple day festivals where attendees are mostly local. Shaky Knees in Atlanta is a great name for Shaky Knees Fest. Last but not least, by far the most popular, Summerfest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Have you heard of Summerfest? Do you have any thoughts or feelings on Summerfest, Rob Mahoney?
I do, because we got many emails about it, which I'm going to say is a very Milwaukee thing to do. To be like, let me tell you about our local music festival.
Okay. Free ad for Summerfest. Headlining acts include Cake, Offset, The Fray, Megan Thee Stallion, Young the Giant, and Riley Green. Honestly, these all sound like a blast. I hope you guys all enjoy your festivals this spring and summer into fall. Again, if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yes.
Anything else you want to say? Yeah?
I still think PittFest, too, there's just a real missed opportunity to do the double meaning of Pittsburgh and the Pit. Like, it should be a metal festival.
Oh, the Mosh Pit Fest.
Absolutely. Not. You don't need it. It's just the Pit, Joe. Come on. You don't need to mosh it.
Cool. Thanks for calling me out like that.
I'm just saying. They call it the Pit.
One of our listeners who is a Yinzer did point out that they don't call Pittsburgh the Pit. They really only call the university that.
Okay.
So whatever PittFest was, it was probably in close proximity to the university, which is where the hospital would be anyway. The hospital, the university, they don't call they wouldn't call something else PittFest. So
yes,
if that helps nail down the proximity. Last but not least, we're not going to read this email. I just want to shout out Eric, who sent us the longest email possible about this and just triangulated the when, the where, the why, the how, who would be playing Coachella so that this would not be competing with Coachella, and and the budget that they would have and stuff like that. It was just like a piece of art from Eric. So thank you so much for that email. Not
even a tour manager's mind, but one who is seeing the whole board of all the tour managers' minds. It was truly an impressive piece of work.
It was art. Okay. The Pit. We did it.
That's it. Season 1 anyway. Again, we're going to be back here sooner than later, Joe.
That's it for the Pit. Again.
Oh, one last note about season 2
Please.
that I read, from R. Scott Jamil, who's the showrunner of the Pit, mentioned in an interview with Parade that there will probably be a slight time jump into season 2. We're not coming back tomorrow, the day after the mass casualty event. He ballparked it at 2-3 months. So just enough time for a certain 30-day rehab program, perhaps, and then some, just enough time for people to kind of clean the decks, scrub the bathroom. We're kind of back to normal in the ER.
For Santos and Whitaker to have figured out who does and does not do the dishes. One last thing, if you go back and watch this season, there were hints all season that Whitaker was living in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
The track was laid. But I want to say I was rewatching an episode, just 2 episodes ago, I think it was 13, where he was like, there are a bunch of empty rooms and
the fourth floor is completely empty.
Before we go, I would be remiss to not say on the Grey's Anatomy beat, shout out Dr. Callie Torres, the original doctor who lived in the hospital. Of course, that felt like a Grey's reference to me. And I don't know if any doctors lived in the hospital in ER. I don't remember if they did, but this is not an ER sequel, as you and I and Michael Craig's widow
it's definitely
knows.
not. But also, what if they went up to the 5th floor and Alan Alda's just been sleeping up there for weeks? I wouldn't hate it.
I wouldn't at all. I would love to see it. All right. So we'll be back for season 2 of The Pit, where Bryan Cranston will show up as Dr. Mel King's dad. We can only hope. And thank you to Donnie Beacham, to John Richter, and to Justin Sayles for his work on this feed. Rob and I will still be here covering
absolutely
all the shows. So stay tuned to the Prestige feeds, and we'll see you soon. Bye.